Welcome back to AgentMarket's Agent Masterclasses. A quick reminder, everything we share today is for educational purposes only, not financial, legal, or professional advice specific to your situation. Today we're diving into understanding strata and condos, the big picture basics, lifestyle restrictions, and financial situations that every agent should know. Thomas Beattie is the CEO of OctoAI, makers of Eli Report, which is the first automated condo document review tool in North America. Eli Report uses AI to extract and organize vital information from condo documents, turning hours of work into minutes of powerful insights for realtors and their clients. Thomas, welcome to the Masterclass.
Thanks, Kimberly. It's great to be here.
Take us through. What are we going to learn today?
Well, we're going to talk a lot about condos and why they matter. Over the last 5+ years, I've looked at more condo documents than probably anyone alive. We've delivered at Eli Report over 30,000 client reports on over 10,000 unique communities across Canada, plus thousands in the States.
You must have a lot of learnings in terms of do's and don'ts.
We do. And you gave a lovely disclaimer, but I want to point out that we don't provide real estate services. We're not licensed. We don't provide advice. We provide context that's made to help realtors and their clients better understand what community attributes are important to them, what's going to impact their life, and potentially help them understand the financial implications and improve their negotiation position. So a lot to cover.
Strata documents, do they have to be reviewed by every agent?
They do in British Columbia. These document sets can exceed 1,000 pages. That's not common, but they are hundreds of pages long. And it's helpful to use a tool like ours to get to what matters quickly, so that when you do review the documents, you know what you're looking for, and you can better explain that.
Oh, do you want to show us?
Yeah, let's go through it. So up on your screen now, you'll see Eli and some condo intelligence for everyone. Nearly a third of people live in some sort of multifamily condo, townhouse, HOA, or apartment type community today. And the vast majority of those are condo HOA titled. And you, as a realtor, will be furnished with a document set from the seller. And the disclosure document set can vary by jurisdiction, but it's a lengthy list that generally includes first an information certificate, a 1 to 5 page summary of that particular community, the latest condo fees, whether there's any amounts outstanding by the current owner, often some things about whether there are rentals, whether there are other legal or important matters that need to be disclosed. So that's called a Form B in British Columbia, a status certificate in Ontario, and a variously information certificate across other jurisdictions. In BC, we see the AGM, SGM, and meeting minutes. In Ontario, it is possible to get those documents, but not included by default, which I find very surprising, given that Ontario is proactive in certain other areas. You'll see bylaws and rules, the lifestyle restrictions. In America, they're called CC&Rs, or covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Budgets and financials, so how have and will they spend their money as a community? What is the insurance and what does it cover? And that varies dramatically based on whether it's a condo building or whether you live in a detached community that is part of an HOA or an association that's bare land strata. Reserve fund studies and depreciation reports look at the common property and the health and life of those assets. Other engineering and warranty reports, sometimes on a specific element, building envelope or the plumbing system or the parking garage. Warranty, obviously looking at the 2, 5, 10 home warranty issues that may be covered. Legal disclosures, whether there be tribunal cases involving disputes between owners or court cases between the corporation and anyone that may have been involved in working with them. Incorporation documents, site plans, condo or strata plans, which give you the layout of the building. Title information and disclosure statements for new constructs. So that is a lot of disclosure.
That is a lot.
A lot.
So how do real estate agents go about finding the information that they have to point out to the buyer or seller?
This used to be, before Eli Report existed, a very manual exercise. It was a couple of hours going through all of the documents. And even once you had reviewed it and you had a good sense of the community, you still didn't necessarily have context. So that's something that's very important to us. Before I get into how we help, I want to talk about the elements of condo fees, because what people tend to think about are the monthly fees. That monthly component is not the total cost of living in a condo community beyond the purchase price. It reflects the operating budget plus some reserve contribution. And there's a huge difference among jurisdictions as to how much they're putting aside. So in British Columbia, the average condo fees now exceed $500. A few years ago, the table there goes back to 2021, was a little over $400. So some pretty significant rises over that 5-year period. And yet in Ontario, the average condo fees are now over $800 a month. Why so different? There's a couple of reasons. The biggest one is that BC's reserve funding requirements are based on the operating budget, while Ontario says that you need to be adequately funded for future projects. The chart in the middle indicates how significant the difference is. Ontario's putting nearly 40% of the operating budget in towards a reserve fund out of their monthly fees. British Columbia is only doing, well, 15 to 17%, depending on how you calculate your averages. And that means that in BC, we are dramatically underfunding our reserves. And that results in special levies. So I talk about special levies a fair bit because they're a huge topic in this province. I'm estimating that roughly $1 billion a year is funded by special levies. And that is an enormous amount of money. And when you look by year built, you can see that new builds, this is the last chart on the right, have very little estimated special levies. They're new. They don't have to do a new envelope. They don't have to do a new plumbing system. And some of them don't yet have the depreciation report that would even allow for an estimation on what those costs might be and when they might start. But obviously, as your building ages, your envelope, your roof, your parking garage, your plumbing system, your elevators, they have a unique life. For many of the high cost ones, it's 30 to 40 years. And then you've got to do a new envelope. And when you do that, there come the big costs and often the big levies. And we actually see that it's those buildings built in the 90s currently that have the highest level of projected levies over the coming years. And it's because they're at the age where those major projects are being done. I was a bit surprised that older buildings had lower expected special levies, Kimberly, but I think it's because they've been through the major replacement cycle. So they've still got lots of other components that are being updated and replaced, but some of that big stuff is behind them for another decade or two.
Yeah, it's the new cycle, new wave of buildings coming through.
Exactly, that new wave.
Yeah.
So we built Eli Report to help people understand what mattered about their communities. We've delivered over 30,000 of these reports, and AI is a wonderful thing. But we still have a human team here, admin team plus myself, total group 12, based here in the Lower Mainland, a couple now across the country. That manually review structured data to ensure that we have it accurate and do our very best to present the information as well as we can. So yes, it's AI, but there's also humans behind it. So can we go through an Eli report together?
Yeah, I would love that.
Perfect. You got a little fun fact. Eli stands for every little item, and that's what we want everyone to understand about their community. When you get an Eli report, you get a orientation, a quick recap of the building, and then a very high-level generative summary. So just a little bit of orientation before you get into some of the more detailed analysis.
Thomas, how does it work? So do I upload the Strata document into your system?
That's right.
And then how long does it take before the report comes back?
Minutes. For a building that we've already reviewed much of the structural information, it could be less than 5 minutes. For one where we've got to calculate and verify the information, it could be 20, 25 minutes, but it's normally very quick. And this next little section attempts to organize into categories some of the key issues. So there was a big waterproofing project that obviously would have had an impact on owners. It was scheduled to be complete, so that project is now in the past. There are rules that prohibit owners from having short-term rentals. Obviously, that's a big factor for people. And we've got a whole section on bylaws and rules. But again, this section is meant to give you a high-level sense of what matters are affecting your community. This is what I think is the most valuable and important section of an Eli report. Special levy forecasts are going to impact your buyers in a very material way, depending on how well funded the community is. And this, which is our sample building, there's 2 levies projected, and they're all in the next 5-6 years. They're only $13,000, which, if you looked at my estimates earlier, it's a couple $1,000s a year on average that owners should be setting aside for these levies. So this is 7 or 8 years worth of levies. It is meant to show you the timing and magnitude of potential special levies. It is derived entirely from the documents that we've been provided with. The latest budget, the latest CRF balance, the contingency reserve fund balance, and the latest reserve fund study or depreciation report. And the engineers do not have a crystal ball. They are putting together their reports based on the current expected life of each of the components of a building. And those are not scientific, and they will not be accurate to the month or to the year necessarily that they've indicated. Someone's roof will last 5 years longer, but someone else's plumbing system will last 3 years less. Whatever they've estimated, we assume is the best forecast of the future costs. And we apply a whole bunch of very important but basic assumptions in terms of how these communities are going to fund themselves, and then use math to project when there will be a shortfall and what that might turn out to be. And you can find a very significant difference in your forecast if you've just had and approved a budget that has a much lower than normal contingency reserve fund contribution, which will lead us to forecast much bigger shortfalls. Or vice versa. If you put in a whole bunch more this year than you typically would, we will be underestimating the future special levies because it's all derived off of the latest data. That notwithstanding, this is the best estimate that we can put together for what your community may face. And if you're a buyer, you should be planning to save for these costs. And if you are seeing very significant levies in the near term, you should be bringing that into your discussions, realtor, client, and counterparty, so that you are clear about what that looks like and how it's going to impact you, and negotiate if necessary so that your buyer can afford to pay these levies and not put their home at risk.
I was talking to a property inspector, and he walked through the building, and they had stated that the pipes were going to be renewed in 2030, and it was all leaking because they have to be replaced right now.
Yes. And there will be lots of potential giveaways hiding in the documents that we would try and bring to your attention. So you really do need to know what you're looking at. And you, as someone who's walking into a condo community for the first time, whether you're a realtor or you're a potential buyer, you're not aware of what is going on behind the walls. And thankfully, there's usually a lot of information available in the documents to help you provide some context around that. On this page, I'm showing bylaws and rules, but I've shown a special view, which is the report owner's controls that will allow them to hide things that aren't relevant. If we've brought up something that relates to elevation where there's elevator, or something that no longer applies, you can also add comments to provide context and your expertise directly in the report before you share it. So we've got some evidence of controls there. Overall, we try and flag what matters in a community, and that means that we are providing some generative summaries, which should not be hallucinating, a common AI problem, because they're derived only from the results that we've pulled directly from the materials. And I'll show you what that looks like on the next page. We'll also flag when there isn't a rule that may be applying in a certain section. So in this case, when we've expanded the actual results, you can see that there's one that talks about no owner using their Strata lot for Airbnbs. You can view that in our side-by-side viewer to get the original context. In this case, that's all there is. Sometimes you're seeing one sentence out of a an important paragraph. So that's what that tool allows you to do. We also provide benchmarks, and benchmarks help you understand not only what something is, but what it is relative to other buildings of the same type and age. So in this case, we are looking at insurance. We'll later look at financials. This community is paying just a little bit less than its peers for its insurance, which is great. Their earthquake deductibles are just slightly higher. Earthquake deductibles 5 to 10 years ago were often 5%, sometimes 10. Now they're 10 to 20%. So, it's changing over time as risks change and as costs of coverage change. But this building is fortunate to have below average water and flood deductibles. And that could be an indicator that they haven't suffered from an excessive number of claims. Conversely, high premiums might indicate that there have been prior losses, and the insurers are putting them into a higher risk category. When we get to meeting minutes, we indicate where we believe we've seen minutes and then mentions of other activities within those documents, and again, allow for summarization of the important elements of each one, flagging those that are most important. If there have been, as there are in this case, some important issues around leaks, we highlight that. We have that section expanded so that you see the summary and you can dive into the details of all of them. When you do go into the detailed list, everything's presented in a reverse chronological order to help you make sense of what would have happened over a series of meeting minutes over the last couple of years. When you get to a strata or a condo community's budget, it's important to get a sense of whether they're adequately funding it. Because if they're not, you're going to see that show up again in future special levies. Deferring maintenance is rarely a winning strategy. And in fact, proactive maintenance can extend the life of your assets and give you longer to fund them, while also potentially having them be in better serviceable condition. So on this community, we see that the total budget and the repair and maintenance is a bit above its peer group. I actually think that's healthy. We tend to see a bit of underfunding in this province. So seeing an adequate budget for repair and maintenance makes me happy. Management fees are in line, a little bit under, which is good. This building has obviously negotiated a good rate with their manager. Remember with property management that it is not all about price. You get what you pay for. British Columbia underpays its managers relative to other jurisdictions, and it is an exceptionally difficult job overseeing and helping your condo board or your strata council oversee a significant commercial property asset. So low fees is not necessarily the win. You want high quality service. Utilities, this building's average. It may show you whether or not the community is got a central heating system in it. If it was very low, you'll probably be metered for all of your own utilities. So that provides context. And the bottom two are my favorites. This is the reserve fund contributions from your budget and your reserve fund balance, which you actually have in the bank. And what makes me feel comfortable relatively on this scale is that one is high and one is low. If they are both low, that's an indicator that you are underfunded and underfunding. If they are both high, it means that you're well funded and you're funding it well, which is great. It also might mean that you're expecting something very soon, which will show up elsewhere in the information. But again, all about context, turning some of those numbers into something that can matter relative to peers. Legal matters, very important in an Eli report. It's summarizing and setting out what the issues are and what the likely implications and red flags might be. Quite a helpful tool. Provides you with some comfort over what are very difficult documents to read and digest. And then for engineering, we also have the same type of detailed review where you can look at things by subject. And then we've added in some climate scores from a local BC-based company called AI6, and they provide climate risk scores that will indicate whether there's likely to be a dramatic change in the coming years on heat, precipitation, wind, wildfire, and other. So pretty fantastic. When you order an Eli report, you do have the ability to download this PDF companion. It can be presented alongside your sheet at the open house, and the user can scan the QR code to get into the underlying report and investigate all of those details. So it's a nice little piece of marketing for you. And for realtors, we've recently developed a widget that can live on your website on any condo page, displaying some scores. This one has insurance and financial health on it. You can resize, shape, and color those to fit into your page, into a sidebar, And it's a lead funnel that will allow someone who's interested and might not be able to visit an open house because they're out of town or abroad to engage with you and seek the additional information that they might need to get more comfortable with that. So lead generation tool sits alongside your other capture options. And it's like adding a walk score, but for condos and giving them that context from us. That tool is also free to any subscribers of Eli Report. So we're all about providing intelligence for an audience of realtors who want to do their best for their clients, to both empower them to make the most informed decisions and to negotiate to the best of their ability, armed with the intelligence that they need so that they can reach a satisfactory outcome.
That's amazing. And what has the feedback been from agents that have used it with their clients?
Well, after delivering 30,000 reports, we've gotten a lot of feedback, and we've evolved a
Yeah, I
lot.
bet.
The tooling has changed dramatically since when we started. And, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. They're getting a much better understanding of the community. They are empowered to make better decisions. Buyers and those that are on Strata Council living in communities also value this report because it provides them with information that they need to make better decisions for their communities. And we have even more advanced tools for them. But it is all about trying to make sure that you have a better command of what's happening.
Yeah, because the way that I see this is like I can make an informed decision on buying this condo. Does the document get presented as a whole to the potential buyer or seller? Like the realtor gets the report, what happens next?
Yeah, the realtor has the ability to share that report with their clients. If they do
Yeah,
it through our system, then they're able to see that that's been delivered and opened and how many times it's been viewed by their client. So they can assure themselves that their client is aware of what's happening. We give each realtor with their report when it's complete a link so that they have access to the controls, plus a public link that they can share with their client so that that client can view the report if they don't want to use our system to distribute it to them. So
okay.
that information is actually right at the top of the report. The share and the PDF print functions
Yeah,
are right at the top. And yes, we do see good uptake of that. Sellers agents use Eli Report as well. They'll have the report run on the document set that they've pulled for their clients. They're able to share the Eli Report after an agent's open with other realtors. They're able to share it with those that visit the open house. That transparency is excellent for building trust with the other side. At the end of the day, you're trying to see whether or not there is a transaction potential. You want to
yeah.
help your sellers sell their property. While there is information contained in every document set that may give the buyer leverage in a negotiation, they're going to have that leverage at some point anyway if they do their jobs and review those documents as buyers and as buyers agents. So doing it up front provides them with that clarity so that they can negotiate and present an offer that is more likely to stick than one that they've placed on a unit where the disclosure documents indicate a lot of problems.
Yeah, and I think from a seller's side, can go through the document and basically say, okay, these are the things that are going to come up. They might reduce the value that now we can start at a higher price, but just be aware that this could come back, right? And again, it's the transparency and openness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, people want to realize the best value that they can. You've got both buyers and sellers. You're looking for that overlap between what the seller reasonably expects and what the buyer can reasonably pay. And if you are able to achieve that, then you have a transaction. The extent to which it benefits the buyer or seller depends on the negotiating position and the desires and motivations of the buyer and seller and the skill and diligence of the realtor and agent. That is the entire real estate transaction process as I see it. If there is interest in a property between, the buyer and the seller.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned that it's mainly for, like, it's for realtors, right? Can stratas use it as well?
Strata council members, buyers, owners, condo board members in other jurisdictions. Property management firms, engineers, lawyers, and notaries also use Eli Report. But the main user in British Columbia has always been the realtor. The obligation
Yeah.
to review the documents is real. Our tool does not alleviate or release an agent from that obligation, but we make it
No.
much easier for them to understand. That's why they've trusted Eli Report over the last 5+ years. And we are delighted to continue to evolve the tool to make it more powerful and deliver them greater insights.
That's amazing. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Kimberly. I think that we've got always lots to talk about in the condo world. I know that this Masterclass series is relatively new for you. We started our own series this year where we talk a lot with stakeholders in the real estate industry about issues that matter, particularly in the condo world, but also involving real estate and anything related to the home. So really delighted to see you do this. Hope that everyone that tunes in has learned a little bit of something about condos and what matters. We'd be very glad to speak with you. My contact information was up there on the slides. You can get to us at elireport.com. Please do reach out. We'd be very glad to hear from you. And yes, running your report is simple. Takes you a couple of minutes to drag and drop your documents with an address, and the rest is on us. So thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah, no problem. And for anybody that has been watching, if you found this valuable and you want to learn more about condos and stratas, I highly recommend Thomas's podcast because it's like there's always new insights that come up. So check it out. And once again, this has been incredibly valuable. Thomas, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with everybody on condo documents and helping agents better understand the complexities of strata living. So thank you, and I hope to see you again next year on one of our next agent masterclasses.
Love it. Thanks, Kimberly.